So Dan, welcome to the Big Ten, right? I mean, what thoughts or feelings do you have when you hear that about being in the Big Ten now?
There's just excitement when you step into this building, knowing that this is a place where if things go the way you want them to go, that you get the opportunity to be here. But being a part of this conference, the traditions that exist in this conference, some of the storied teams that you're going to get to play against, I'm really excited about.
If you had to name some of the challenge or the most challenging things about this year and playing in this conference, maybe the travel, whatever, what is that going to look like for you?
Well, I think the challenge now in college football is that your team continues to change so much year to year. This is a brand new team, and you got to figure it out quick. There's not a you don't get a redo. So we have to build that team and bring a lot of guys that weren't necessarily connected in the same locker room last year, and onboard some guys quick to really get them caught up to the process. And then obviously the change of venue. When you've been traveling to a place for the last 10 years, you get a familiarity with the hotel and what that looks like and how's the operation. There's a lot of those things that we'll have to clean up in this year traveling in the Big Ten.
Obviously, a lot of expectation around your team, a lot of good buzz, good vibe. Automatically coming in as one of the top teams that they're looked at in this league and a chance for a championship. Do you guys embrace that kind of pressure or expectation, or how does that affect you?
You know what? Well, we've spent a lot of time talking to our team in the past about a lot of times people set expectations that aren't in that room, and it's not really reality. And I think our team last year is an example of that. It doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks. We have really high expectations for ourselves, and that's what matters is, are we living up to our standard? Are we playing the way we want to play? I think anytime you have buzz around your program, it means you're probably doing something right. But maintaining that in college football is really tough.
You talked about new players and new faces. One of those, and probably the most notable, Dylan Gabriel, a quarterback. And you have a kind of a blueprint, or you had a blueprint of a guy coming in from another school, had a lot of experience in Bo Nix, played great. First-round draft pick.
Yeah.
What is similar about Dylan, and what are your expectations for him?
Well, one thing I'll say about both those guys is they've been authentic. They both came in here and they were in a program where they felt like they could be themselves. So I'm excited to see Dylan do that. I think he knows that there's steps to this process, and something he had to do quickly is get connected with the team, the people around the building, and he's really attacked that well. Moving into the season, I'm looking forward to seeing more of his vocal leadership on the field. He's super competitive, but he's done a great job with connecting with his teammates.
Yeah. A couple other guys that were big-time performers for you a year ago, Jordan James, Tez Johnson. What do you expect to see out of those guys this year?
Yeah, growth. We don't want to take a step backwards. We want to build on what we did in the past, but the reality is last year has nothing to do with this next season. So very capable players, really talented players, really hard workers. I want to see that carry over to success for them on the field.
One of the things that, in listening to you do interviews that today, I hear you use the word connection, heard you use the word fellowship several times. How important is that piece or that part of what you're building as far as a program or a culture?
Yeah, outside of having great talent, I think it's the most important thing. I think you have to have great players. You look at the teams that win big games, they have great players. Teams that compete for championships have great players, but next they need to love the man they're sitting in the locker next to him. And you only do that with creating opportunities for these guys to spend time outside of football, right? To have a meal over at your house, to go on a retreat, whatever that might look like. And that's something we take a lot of pride in at our place.
Talk about your schedule a little bit. 5 of your first 6 games at home. Mm-hmm. You got like a 3-game home stretch that ends with a big game against Ohio State, or at that point, and then you're playing Oregon State also, which is that's a testy game, right? And not your typical non-conference game.
Yeah, excited about, there's some great opponents across our schedule. I'm really glad that we were able to keep the Oregon State rivalry alive. I think that's important for our state. It's important for college football for teams to try to fight to keep those things going. And that's probably not always a reality, but it's something that we certainly want to keep alive and keep going. But yeah, you look at some of the teams we're going to play on our schedule this year. There's some really exciting venues and some really exciting teams coming to town, or us going to go play in some places we haven't seen before.
Yeah. So speaking of that Oregon State, now is that going to stay that way, a home and home?
I think it's hard to say anything in college football.
Yeah, true, right?
Right. I mean, I don't know what 12 months from now look like.
Yeah.
I'll say this, that us at Oregon would love to see that game continue. And we're probably not in charge of that, and they're probably not in charge of that either, but I think both schools want to work together and make it happen if possible.
Going back to Dylan a little bit, just what you've seen on the field, what are his greatest strengths, do you think?
Yeah, I think he's a great decision maker. He's really good as a progressive reader, being able to work across the board. I think he understands concepts really well. I think he's really good at doing the monotonous things consistently, right? The things that you just as a quarterback have to be able to operate and replicate time after time after time. I think that's become second nature for him. He's a guy that does the extra work, right? What's required. He's getting the arm therapy treatment. He's doing the extra that's going to pay off when we talk about the end of the season.
Yeah. You're a relatively youthful guy. I mean, as a coach and a head coach, your staff, you have a very youthful staff. What advantage do you think that brings? Obviously, energy is one thing,
Right.
but what else does that bring to your
Well,
team?
I always talk about quality of experience over quantity, right? I think, certainly I'm a younger coach in this profession, but I got to work with some outstanding ones. And I'm looking for quality experiences when we bring coaches on our staff, but I'm looking for people to care about people first. I think you'll get the best out of your players whenever you have people that are driven that way. I think these guys are willing to work. The staff that we have together is a staff that puts in a lot of time, and you have to be close to be able to create that. And then they're also willing to change. And probably the most important trait right now in college football are coaches that can adapt. So we have a staff that embraces all those things.
How would you define the style of play or your team mentality when the Oregon Ducks play football?
Yeah, I think you see some of those same DNA traits that we talk about within our program: connection, growth, toughness, sacrifice. A team that's willing to play for each other, right? To put their self, thoughts and the things that they want to accomplish individually aside to do that for the betterment of the team. A tough team, right? A team that's going to play a physical brand of football at the line of scrimmage, that's willing to throw their head, face in the fan when necessary to fight for that hard yard. I hope you see a team that's growing. And when I say that, you may see us make a mistake early in the season that I hope we don't replicate later on the season. We learn from our mistakes, even within a game, being able to adapt. And then a connected team, right? A team that's celebrating with each other, loves each other, that when we step off the field, we're still brothers.
You mentioned some of the valuable experience you had working with Nick Saban, working with Kirby Smart, and seeing how championship programs are built.
Right.
What's the best things you took from those experiences in terms of, okay, how are we going to build a championship team here at Oregon?
Yeah, I think consistency. Consistency in their approach. All the things that us as coaches love to do, those aren't all the things that you have to spend all your time doing all the time, right? Every one of us wants to go out to the grass and start coaching, right? But seeing, Nick's consistency when it came to recruiting or a staff meeting that might be monotonous to some people, he was able to do those things with a level of consistency. And then, from Kirby, the adaptability of the game. If this is something we're not very good at, what drill can we create that's going to make that performance better? I think both those guys were outstanding at those things.
Your thoughts about the expanded playoff format this year, and just the opportunity that creates for everybody?
Yeah, I'm certainly a little bit indifferent because I think it's on us as coaches to go win and take care of that ourselves. On the same note, I think it's going to be an unbelievable experience for the fans. We're going to have some really exciting football at the end of the season in December leading into January that's going to be great for the sport. So I'm excited about that piece.